All right, there we go. And go ahead, the floor is yours.
Well, well, thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me here. For those who don't know me or haven't read anything, my name's Chris Hoeler. I'm the video coordinator or video coach for the Hartford Wolfpack professional hockey team, which obviously we're based in Hartford. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about sort of where my journey's been. I would say that mine is a relatively different journey than most people that are in my industry, just because of for a variety of reasons, which I'll get into. Um, so basically, I'm just going to go through my background in education real quick, the organizations and roles that I've been in. I obviously won't go through all of them in extreme detail just because there's a lot. But I will talk about my job, basically the big areas of it, some takeaways that I've had from my career, but most importantly, I definitely want to get towards. I want to try and breeze through that stuff because I know from me being in the shoes that you guys are in, usually I find that the Q&A and conversations at the end of these is always the most helpful. So I'm going to try to get to that as quickly as I can, because I'm sure you guys will have some questions, especially since there's so many different majors. All of you guys, obviously every class is represented among you guys. So I definitely want to get into that too. So basically, I grew up a hockey fan. I never played any sort of organized hockey. I'm 31 years old and I can't even skate. Growing up, I was a huge New York Rangers fan. My aunt was a season ticket holder for the team for about, I'd say, over 30 years. So basically my entire life. And that's how I kind of got introduced to the game, was just watching, which in a way is actually kind of perfect for what I do now. But I never played it. I never, got involved at the youth levels or anything like that. So when I went to school, I went to my undergrad at Fairfield University. If you guys don't know anything about it, they do not have a varsity hockey program. They haven't since probably the mid 90s, I would say. So when I went to college, I actually had no clue what I wanted to do with my life. I just knew that I wanted to find something that would make me happy. And I knew that getting a business degree was one of those things where it was like sort of the most applicable to, everything that, pretty much any job. Like you can go most of you guys are either communications or business, which I feel like are the two most flexible degrees and subjects when it comes to really anything, because they're just very basic and they cover a wide range of topics, which is never a bad thing. And I also was a German minor too. So I had no clue what I wanted to do. It wasn't until probably about sophomore year, when I had to declare a major, that I actually picked business management. So, shout out to whoever's doing that right now. You're in a really good spot. But I did that because I knew that no matter what I did, managing people was always going to be something that you're going to have to do in every job. It doesn't matter what it is, because in every job you're working with teams, you're working with other people to ensure the success of your organization. So I figured that was a big thing for me. I would say probably about junior year, I kind of figured out, I really wanted to kind of get into hockey somehow. When I would say the first thing I ever did that was hockey related was I started a blog the summer before my freshman year of college, because I was bored. I literally had nothing to do and I needed something to occupy my time. And I was like, you know what, I'll just start writing hockey. This is when, WordPress and all those blog sites were starting to come out, and there was a million of them and things like that. But through that, which I'll show you in a minute, I'll show you where that kind of led me. And then after my undergrad, at that point, I knew I wanted to be in sports and in hockey. So I went straight to graduate school and got my master's in sports business management from Manhattanville. Again, it was sort of a thing of circumstance, between my degree, my undergrad degree, not really being in that field. And also when I graduated, to kind of date myself a little bit, when I graduated college in 2011, the economy and the job market was really terrible. It was absolutely abysmal. And I actually remember one day we were in class, it was senior year, it was probably 3 weeks before graduation, and our teacher, or we were in a group meeting, and it was the entire senior class, and they asked if anybody had already landed a job for after graduation to raise your hand. And I would say maybe 20% at most of the kids had raised their hands. So at that point, I kind of figured, I was like, you know what, let's just go. I'm going to need to do this. I'm going to want to do this. So let's just do it, especially since I was already in school mode anyway. So because of that, it kind of gave me the opportunity to get a lot of experience. These are all of the sports organizations that I've worked for. Some of them multiple times, some of them for only a year, but I've definitely jumped around, but I've been able to do a lot of different things, which has been kind of a big thing for me. So like, this is basically a list of every sports job that I've ever had, which started in 2008, while I was a sophomore, actually. And the reason that I got that job was because the minor league team in Danbury, they wanted somebody who could write press releases or knew how to use a website to type articles or whatever. And I literally sent my blog that I had done for, at that point, probably had been doing for about a year and a half. I sent that to the guy, the head of their business department or whatever. And he said, yeah, come on in. And I was writing articles pre and post game. I was selling merchandise during the game, basically doing things that I had no interest in doing whatsoever. But it was a start. It was something that I knew if I was going to make a run at this, I needed to find a way in. And that was really the biggest thing, was just getting your foot in the door, getting some experience, getting to see what the business was like, even at that kind of a low level. And as you can see, I've jumped around. I've been all over the place, and a lot of internships, a lot of temporary jobs. I would say even a bunch of these are actually volunteer positions as well. So, 13 jobs in 12 years of sports. We're not even including all the other jobs that I had to do to actually make some money. But it's sort of a good thing, because I got a lot of experience in different things. I thought when I started that I wanted to do public relations and media relations. By the time I got through my PR internship with the New York Rangers, I decided that is not what I wanted to do. I loved that internship. It was a lot of fun, but I realized that, public relations wasn't what I really wanted to do in the sport. And I mean, that's, I don't see that summer that I did with them as a waste. I thought that was probably one of the most valuable things I learned, was that I didn't want to do PR. So don't be afraid to take an internship that maybe isn't exactly what you want to do, or maybe it is exactly what you want to do. And if you get into it, you don't like it, like, that's okay. Because that means you're just finding out something. You're like, you know what, I don't really like this, but in the process, you may get exposed to something that you do really like. So basically, I would say the last 3 years, these last three positions have kind of been the three biggest ones for me. And obviously being a video coordinator in Hartford, is sort of was a bit of a surprise, which I'll go through a little bit later. But just basically the takeaway from this is don't be afraid to jump around and get your hands in as much stuff as you possibly can, because you never know what it's going to give you. So that's sort of basically where I've been and how I got into this. Being like I said, being somebody that never played hockey, I knew that I didn't want to really be a coach on the bench, or I didn't want to do, I couldn't skate. I didn't play the game. So doing like skill development was always going to be a difficult thing. But one thing I've always been good at is I've always been good with technology. I've always been good with computers. And while I don't have a granular knowledge of the game like some of my coaches do or things like that, I have enough knowledge that I can identify things, and it's something that you can learn. Just like you guys are learning as, different majors, you're learning different parts of your thing. I've basically been going to hockey school for the last 2 to 3 years, more so in the last 2. Really hardcore to learn about the game itself. So I'm just going to go through these 3 items, which are probably the 3. This will pretty much cover the bulk of my job, what I do with the Hartford Wolfpack. So the first thing is Huddle Sports Code. I don't know how many of you guys have played high school sports or really any or sports at the youth level. There's a company called Huddle, which they created this platform called Huddle that is used by a lot of high schools and youth organizations for breaking down video and distributing video. I know a lot of kids that are looking to become Division I, Division III athletes will use it to create highlights. But at the higher end, they have another program called Sports Code, which is basically a video system that I use to tag video for our coaches. So what you see on the screen here on the right is basically a game. Obviously, the game is up in the right-hand corner. And during a game, I'm watching this screen and I'm hitting things on the left here, which is basically, it's called a code window, and all of these are buttons. And they all obviously have keystrokes and hotkeys and things like that. So in this particular picture, if I'm the video coach for the Rangers, this would be considered a defensive zone faceoff, since we're in the faceoff zone. Obviously, our goalie's right here, so we're in the D zone. So as soon as the puck is dropped, I would hit the Y button here, and if this was in the right view, there would be a row that says FODZ, and there would be a little tick mark. So now, if I go through a game and a coach wants to look at all the faceoffs in our defensive zone, he can click in this row on these little blocks, and he can pull that video up incredibly quick. Which in reality, that's kind of what it is, because for us, in a given standard weekend, we're playing 2 to 3 games a weekend. Usually, if it's 2 games, it's Friday night, Saturday night. If it's 3 games, it's Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday afternoon. So as coaches and a coaching staff, there's not a lot of time for us to really break things down and get really detailed between games. So having this sort of system, which, singles out those instances, instead of us having to go back through and watch the whole game and watch, look for specific things and try to remember, oh, when did this happen? When did that happen? This allows us to really go through our games incredibly quick and pick out those important things that we need to know for the next day. And this software is basically the core of my job, and pretty much anything I do is branching off of this. So for example, one thing that takes up a ton of my time is pre-scouting opponents before we play them, which I'll use Sports Code for, to basically watch a game, mark it up with all the different, things that we look for with players and what the other team is doing. We'll create basically a video meeting, which is usually between 2 and 3 minutes long for the players to go over before the game. And then also the thing that takes the most time is making these pre-scout sheets, so this was a pre-scout sheet for our January 3rd game. Picking out, okay, what are the lines for the other team going to be? What do we need to do? What does the other team like to do? Who are some of the key players on the other team and their stats? What are their special teams looking like? And then, coming up with some notes on different things. Obviously, we're not going to have notes on everything, just because, during the year, like, for example, Providence will play them about 10 to 12 times a year. So by the time you get to the 4th or 5th game of them, you kind of have a pretty good idea of what they're doing. It's not like they're drastically changing their systems or the way they play. But this just gives our players, who obviously have a lot to think about when going into a game, right? Like, what's the other team doing? Okay, what do I have to do? Or even as simple as, late in the game when everybody's tired, like, what do I need to do on the ice so that I don't get killed or I don't do something stupid? So we try to create these sheets that have just quick little blurbs about, little reminders of what this is, what that is, what we need to do, what we need to focus on, what not to do. And that's what the hope of this sheet is that it's not a Bible. Obviously, guys need to be able to read and react within a game, but we want to be able to go into a game having a pretty good idea of what the other team is going to be doing. And obviously they're doing the same thing when it comes to us. So this is a big focus, especially for our coaching staff, to make sure that this is a detailed but quick way for our players to reference what they can expect for the game. So in a typical game day, as I said, there's usually a morning meeting, which is usually going over our play, maybe from the night before, from the weekend before, maybe what we did in practice over the course of the week. And, maybe a couple notes about the other team. About 2 hours before our game, we'll have a full team meeting to talk about what the other team does and what we want to do to combat that. And then, and these meetings are maybe at most 5 minutes. So in my role, I'm the person that's making sure all the equipment's working, making sure the meeting that we created in sports code is, good to go and it's working, making sure, the players are ready, making sure the pre-scout sheets are up and all the information that they need is on the board in the locker room. So basically, we're just trying to set our players up for success. And then obviously another big thing is, like, this is our head coach's game card, which he brings on the bench with him. And it obviously has, like, our lineup, their lineup, what his notes are, who the referees are, where guys are going to be in certain situations, and a notes section. So for me, creating all of that stuff, making sure the video is running, it's a relatively crazy kind of job because I'm sure, as you guys know, technology is somewhat unpredictable. So being ready for, obviously being consistent and making sure things are set up, but also if things do go wrong, being able to think on your feet and figure out another way to do things or solve the particular problem. And then obviously in game, I'm tagging video, watching the game between periods. I'm showing clips to the coaches that they wanted to see. And then if, in my case, if there's a video review, so in our league, we can only review goals. I know if you guys watch the NHL, they can review things like offsides, goaltender interference, goals, any multitude, like a bunch of different things. I can only review goals, which is obviously a stressful situation because it's a time crunch. And it could result in either a goal for you, or if you're wrong, you might get a penalty, which will, hurt your team, and then you could get scored against you. So those are some high stress situations for me. I think this past year I only had one, and it's a pretty stressful situation. It was the first time I'd ever done it. So learning to be able to look at video and being able to analyze it not only quickly but correctly, or at least to the best of your ability, is something that I'm still practicing, just because it's something I haven't had a lot of chances to do, but it's something I always have to be ready for. And then post game, I'm distributing the game to the coaching staff. I'm uploading video to the AHL, and also since we're the top development affiliate for the New York Rangers, making sure that the video gets to everybody in the New York Rangers organization that needs it. And then post game stats, I'll go over face-offs and break some numbers out of that. We'll go through our scoring chances and put a lot of information and create reports based on those. And then really I'm back to getting ready. I'm getting ready for the next game. So it's a pretty fast-paced environment. Obviously it can be difficult at times, especially if we're on the road and we're coming home, sitting on a bus for 4 or 5 hours after a game, and you just want to sit back and do nothing and like kind of zone out, but you have to work, or you have to help your the trainers and stuff unload the bus when you get to another town at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you just want to go to sleep. It's kind of a fast-paced environment, but you learn to manage how to divvy up your time and make sure that you get everything done that you need to. So just some basic takeaways that I've learned in my career. Obviously being adaptable. There's a really good chance that you, especially your first job in sports, if you're working at the minor league level, the staffs of a minor league team are pretty small in most cases. So there's a good chance you're going to be wearing some different hats. So you might get hired, like I was, to be the guy that's writing all the press releases and stuff like that. But you also have to sell merchandise and handle that whole situation. Or, you might be there and somebody's sick or somebody doesn't show up, and all of a sudden now you have to take on an extra role that you've never done before. So being ready to handle that is important, and it's a huge component of building trust with people within an organization. Find champions for you. I'd say the best example of this for me is I have a lot of people that I could credit with getting me to where I am, or whatever, different situations. The one that stands out for me actually happened in college. I was a sophomore, and this was trying to get the Rangers public relations internship. I actually didn't get it at first. The person they picked actually failed a drug test, and I was the second person. So I got a little lucky, but I was also worried that my advisor, he was the head of the school of business at Fairfield, wouldn't accept it because it wasn't a business internship. So I remember going to him and telling him that I got it, and he knew kind of what I wanted to do with my life and things like that. And he was nice enough where he said, "Why are you worried about this internship?" I said, "Well, I don't know if you guys are going to give me credit. It's not a business internship. It's PR, it's communications, or any other even like writing or something like that." I didn't think it was business related. And the best thing that he said to me was, he's like, honestly, he's like, "Give me the piece of paper." He's like, "You could be scrubbing toilets for the New York Rangers." He's like, "I would give you credit for the internship." So, finding people that'll champion you, that'll champion what you want to do with your life is incredibly important. I don't think I can certainly point to that and say, if he hadn't allowed me to do that, I certainly wouldn't have gotten to where I am now. So, find people that are going to really support you and enable you to do the things that you want. If you go maybe a little later in your career, but obviously like you guys can do this year to year as students as well, note the similarities and differences between your roles. I remember as a freshman, I always had a little bit of trouble with time management. I think most freshmen would say they do. But you learn how to do things. You learn how to manage your time. When you should stay in your room and like finish that assignment or study a little bit longer, instead of, going out and hanging out with friends or going to do something else. Obviously as your school career goes on, there's different challenges that come up, but having overcome some, you you kind of learn how to deal with different things over time. So always take note of that, because I've learned a lot of things in my old jobs that I never thought would have applied to my job now. Like, for instance, the other day I was talking to our coach about the pre-scouts, and for the marketing people in here, I mentioned the idea of a SWOT analysis, which I'm sure is going to make some business and marketing people cringe hearing that. And I hadn't thought of that in probably 6 or 7 years. I hadn't thought of that term, but I realized, what, actually, that's a really cool way to think about doing a pre-scout in hockey. And when I was sitting in my marketing class in juniors and senior years of college, I never would have thought I would have used it. So, you never know when that stuff's going to come back. Be a sponge. I'm a big fan of SpongeBob, but, always absorb as much as you can. I've learned so much in the last 2 years, and I've been lucky enough that the coaches that I've dealt with have allowed me to kind of sit in and listen to them talk during meetings, like breaking down the game, or even just in the meetings with the team. I've learned a ton. So make sure, even if it's things that you have like I said, you have zero interest in, sit and listen. I mean, you never know what you're going to learn, whether it's you learn about a new job, or you learn about something that somebody else is doing that you're like, oh, actually, I think I might be able to use this, for my own purposes. I do that a lot because as a video guy in hockey, we have our ways, but, there's video coaches in basketball and in football and, soccer, field hockey, rugby, all this, every major sport has video coaches. So it's always good for me to learn not only from other hockey guys, but just learn from other video people. And I've learned how to use different programs. I've actually adapted my code window a little bit more to using some different techniques from other coaches in other sports. So always be a sponge and always be open to learning things, no matter what. Have a positive attitude. I can't tell you how important that is to people, especially in sports where you spend so much time together. I would say during the season, we normally we play 76 games, home and away. We have one off day a week, which is usually Sunday. During the week, we're at the rink together from 7 a.m. till 3 p.m. Obviously we travel and everything. We spend a lot of time together, and having a positive attitude and being an upbeat person makes a huge difference, because, every day is obviously it's a grind, but, the ability to have that makes people like you, and it makes your life a little easier as a team, dealing with that. Obviously, we're all going to have those tough days, but, doing that the majority of the time is huge. Having passion. I don't think you can work in sports without being passionate about sports. It's a pretty unique industry. It's not a 9-to-5 job. It's not it's not like something you punch in and you punch out. You can't do sports if you don't love it. I've had 9-to-5 jobs that I've hated, and I did them because I was like, well, it's paying me and it's easy and whatever, I can get through it. It's not that big of a deal. And I have 2 days off for the weekend. With sports, it's not quite like that. And honestly, like you might find out that's something you don't want to do, which is totally fine. I know there's plenty of people I know that started in sports or got sports degrees, and they found out, yeah, you know what? I don't know if this is for me. So make sure you have that passion, because it can be difficult at times, really long nights, super early mornings, being away from friends and family, missing events, missing birthdays, not being able to go out on the weekend with your friends. There's a lot of stuff that you have to give up if you really want to do things really well in this industry. So it's important. Rely on your support system, your family and your friends. Mine certainly, I wouldn't be where I am without them. So, make sure you find people that understand like what you're trying to do with your life and what you love to do, and they'll support you all the way, no matter what. I'm lucky enough that My parents totally supported me. My friends, even though some of them kind of gave me a hard time about it, in the end, they all support what I do, and it's a huge boost, especially on those days when it's really hard. That kind of ties in. Don't forget where you came from. Obviously, for me, I love doing things like this, talking to students, because I was a student, and I remember sports business and sports management when I was in college was not really a thing, at least not as widespread as it is now. So, giving back to that is really important, and helping. There's plenty of people that are older than me in hockey that have been, helped me along. So it's my turn to kind of help some people along that I can, even if I'm still kind of young in my career. It's important. And then just belief, believing that you can actually get to that point that you want to. There's definitely been plenty of times in my career that I was like, oh my God, this is like, I don't know if I can do this, getting laid off, things like that. But if you have the belief, you can definitely make it. And it's, like I said, it's not easy. It's not an easy industry, but you can, if you love it enough, you'll get through it.